So I think the let's probably start with the promise of cloud gaming, right? And I think it's important to sort of look at the optimistic picture here. What we are essentially talking about is convergence of a few technologies together to just make any fidelity of gameplay experience accessible across device formats, right? Imagine something that could take away the barrier of playing a game of your dreams without having to worry whether, hey, can my machine run it or not, right? So that's the broader promise of cloud gaming. And if you go by that promise, then you can immediately see the potential, right? Hey, I can, even though my phone is a $10,000 MI phone, as long as I have a solid internet connection, I can actually stream a game like Assassin's Creed or PUBG, just like I stream HD video from these OTT platforms, and I can just play on my device. I don't have to store the game on my hardware. I don't have to have the necessary computing power to run it on my device, but I can still play it. I think that's the broader promise, right? Now, in order to make this work, a few things need to work simultaneously, right? One is the cloud infrastructure should really be up there, and we already are. Everybody's using cloud, right? We are all using cloud to. So, for example, nobody's running their own CDNs, and content is basically streamed through various apps that we have. We are already using cloud for basic information transfer. But when it comes to mobile gaming, the data transfer rate, the amount of data that is being transferred, would need to be a higher degree of magnitude, right? You need to transfer higher amount of data both up and down in order to get that high fidelity experience, which is where the leaps in the generations of wireless technology really makes a lot of difference, right? So, for example, cloud computing is absolutely not possible in 3G networks, right? But with 5G networks, it is probably possible because now I can deliver up to 1 Gbps of speed on a mobile device, right? Now that's actually possible, right? So the bandwidth problem is solved, right? The second is the compute bit, right? Like, can service on cloud actually do all the computational processes that a GPU would have done on my machine right now, right? For example, you might have a GPU on your laptop or GPU on your PC or a GPU embedded in your phone. It does a lot of computations of rendering these assets, showing them to the user, etc., etc., right? So if you were to abstract out that problem and run it in cloud, is that possible? Theoretically, yes, right? You could have a server farm where there are massive hundreds of GPUs that are housed somewhere, just like your AWS and GCP cloud centers, and all the computing power required to play that game is sort of like being processed through there, right? So advent of 5G, improvements in your GPU technology and accessibility across these newer device formats are the tailwinds which really make cloud really interesting for everyone, right? And the story obviously becomes very interesting because anybody can play any games. It's a true democratization of games, as we like to call it, and that will really unlock the Netflix-like experience where I can just browse through a carousel of 100 games, just tap on any game, and it just starts playing immediately, which is not currently the case, right? If I have to play a game, I have to download it. It's probably 100 GB worth of data. I don't know whether I can play it on my device or not. I don't know whether my device has the computing power or not. And I don't know whether I have the internet connection to do it or not. So once all of those challenges are solved is when it becomes real, right? Uh, why hasn't it happened yet is probably a more important question to ask, right? And to be clear, there are multiple large, well-pocketed people who have taken reasonable steps at it. Microsoft has a cloud gaming service. Amazon attempted their cloud gaming service. Google attempted Stadia, right? But all of them were not really able to be successful in deliver a meaningful cloud gaming experience yet, just because of the sheer amount of complexity that's involved in the business, right? Because uh, 5G experience is not consistent. It's not a case where I sit on my couch or I sit on my hall and I get an even 5G experience, because 5G is very bandwidth intensive and it is more dependent on frequency than wavelength of the wireless network, right? So it's very difficult to achieve that parity of experience. And the second thing is for playing multiplayer games, which is what most people play these days, right? People are no longer playing solo games, as I previously talked about. In order to make that work, you need very low latency. For example, if I'm firing a bullet at you in Fortnite, that bullet has to hit you immediately, right? If that information gets delayed when the packet switching delays happen and that bullet does not land on the intended user and it doesn't happen concurrently, then it becomes a bad experience for the user, right? So latency also becomes an important challenge, which is not yet fully solved, right? So latency and bandwidth are challenges on which, if enough amount of leaps happen over the next 2 3 years, cloud gaming will become a real enough opportunity, right? As of right now, the consumer use case is just not there. It is just experimental so far. But hopefully, with the technology leaps, things change.
Okay, so what I understood from that is we are still in. It seems like we're still in very early days. Like it's
Yeah,
the technology is not mature yet, and okay,
yeah.
understood.